Iranian airspace is once again open to traffic after it was shut for several hours. This is what it looked like earlier on Thursday morning local time. All flights into and out of the country were grounded, except some arrivals that had been given prior permission. International flights that would normally fly over Iran had to divert. Iranian airspace has now reopened, but several carriers say they're avoiding it until further notice. Airlines have been told passengers to expect delays. Internet network tracker NetBlocks says the internet blackout in Iran has now lasted more than 6 days. Elon Musk's Starlink is reportedly offering free service to some users in the country, one of the few ways that images and videos of the protests have made their way out of Iran. For more, let's go now to Al Jazeera's Tohid Asadi, who joins us live from Tehran. And Tohid, the immediate threat of military action seems to have been tempered, but how is Iran's leadership reacting?
Well, actually, the truth of the matter is that the exchange of furious words has been all the time one of the part of the rhetorics when it comes to the ties between Iran and the United States. But what made it a little bit more serious was the fact that back in June they were engaged in the actual war, and that runs the risk of escalation for another time. Specifically seeing the very recent statements that we heard from both sides. The American president for several times talked about the possibility of intervention, even though we don't have any specific information on how far it's going to go. And also from the Iranian side also, we heard furious statements from actually the Speaker of the Parliament, who said that in case of any attack from the American side, the U.S. actually ships and for actually the bases in the region, as well as the Israeli territories, are going to be our quote-unquote legitimate target. And meanwhile, we've got another message of warning from the commander of IRGC, who came out to say that IRGC is at the fullest preparedness level to respond to any miscalculation by the enemy. And last but not the least was another message of warning to the U.S. allies in the region to avoid any miscalculation. And on that, the Speaker of Parliament came out to say that there is a possibility of the region to be set on fire. All in all, I can say that over the past few hours, we have been witnessing a certain extent of de-escalation. But let's just keep in mind that when the two countries were in the middle of negotiations, war took place back in June, and that means the huge amount of unexpectedness that we can anticipate regarding the context of the ties.
Hand in hand, Tohid, with de-escalation, there are also reports of fewer protests last night, but as you know, we've struggled to get accurate assessments of this because of the internet blackout. So how reliable are those reports?
Well, if I understood you well, speaking of the internet blackout, we have been witnessing that since Thursday night, when the unrest flared up into violence and the government decided to shut it down. And of course, since then, up until the moment that we have been speaking, we have been seeing the continuation of this shutdown. And except for some domestic websites and services, the rest of the access to internet is unavailable to everyone, including the journalists, and that makes it really hard to get communicated, to find verifiable information. And of course, when it comes to the daily communications, international calls were restricted for a long period of time, but right now the incoming calls are still internationally restricted. There's a possibility to call out from some of the lines inside the country. Speaking of the context, it's just putting a tangible impact, specifically for those in online businesses and other sorts of businesses, seeing the dependency of people to internet infrastructures. And there are also daily communications that are in trouble, seeing that most of Iranians are using international applications, international platforms, and international websites. Right now, it's even impossible to Google a simple word, let alone the other communications that people might need, and that is putting a tangible impact on daily lives.
So, Tohid, that has obviously tempered the economy or flattened it to an extent, but has it managed to suppress some of the protests?
Well, I can tell you, speaking of the protest, since Monday, when we had a pro-state demonstration in which hundreds of thousands attended, we have been witnessing less and less of anti-government protests across the streets here in the capital. In some small cities, we have been witnessing sporadic cases, but very sporadic, I insist, compared to the time when it started, compared to the climax of it on Thursday. Now, the situation has been cooling down to a certain extent, and it seems that for several reasons. At first, there was the security measures being tightened up, and in addition to besieged militia, now you have the NOPO or special forces dealing with them. And also the other fact was that many people who were protesters against the economic conditions of the country started to withdraw after they saw the unrest flaring up into violence, and that was a fact that just took people back to their homes. And we have to keep in mind also that seeing the economic situation, the soaring prices, the high inflation, and drastic devaluation of the local currency, whether people took to the streets or not, the public dissatisfaction regarding the economic deterioration is still out there. And the government, meanwhile, says that it has the situation under its control in terms of security, and it's working to come up with measures to settle down the economic difficulties that people are facing.
Tohid Asadi, thank you very much, joining us live from Tehran.
Don't miss out. Get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news and expert insights. Like, share, stay ahead.